So, welcome everybody. We actually have a pretty full agenda. Briandra is going to talk a lot about the Healthy Homes Grant, and we have some updates and some votes to do on that. We do have the first 10 minutes of public comment, and I know that Janet has some news for us.
Okay, I'm not sure if Travis is in attendance, but I made some calls regarding the terminal that's going in. I did call out to Federal Railroad Administration from working with the Quiet Zone 20 years ago. And I did get a call back from them today, and they're going to provide the names and sources. So I did get a call back today finally from the permanent CEO of Coos Bay Rail Line, Linnell Comstock. And she has asked me to get dates that she's more than willing to come to Eugene and provide a discussion format. She tells me that not true, that somewhere we heard that they were starting this spring with that terminal plan and being completed at the end of spring. So she said that they have barely achieved 10% of their funding. So I want to put this caveat out. The budgets may be changed and altered, but I think it's best that we get apprised of what their plans are and get in touch with the resources that we can obtain through the rail industry's funding sources that will help us as a community obtain an understudy of the effects and what would be the mitigations that could be used during this project timeline. So she asked me to obtain some dates, calendar dates that would be achievable. And I thought it would be good, Travis and I think, and Margaret, I think too, of the affected neighborhood associations, they should be enjoined with this discussion format that she's offered to come to Eugene and answer any questions that she can answer.
Thank you, Janet.
I'm anxious to get back with her on that timeline. And she says it's not true with regard to the spring, that they've got lots to go, miles to go before they get there.
I just one thing real quick, then, just so I can comment, because Janet did call me earlier, and what I told her, I thought that the best way to go about this would be to take it, at least to contact the Health and Safety Committee, because I know that you all have been working on this together, and to pull all the resources together and to see what the Health and Safety Committee thinks and how to proceed with this. And then to move forward with that, and that way everybody is up to pace and on the same page as far as that goes. So Dan, hold on, Janet, because Dan had his hand up.
Yeah, Janet, I just wanted to ask you a question. Is this regarding the natural gas terminal that Southern Pacific was slated to put in Transong but was denied, or this is different?
Yes, it's the same topic. The terminal is what I'm labeling it as, the rail line terminal that they're putting in. And I think the boundary neighborhood associations that would be impacted by it would be River Road. They kind of border up to the rail lines there running off the expressway. And Santa Clara, Bethel, Transong, Whitaker, and up towards High Street. Margaret, is that a different neighborhood association?
Downtown, yeah.
Yeah. I think those impacted neighborhood associations should certainly be invited to come, or we could split it up over a couple of other dates. But I think as a whole, it would be good for all of us to meet together to hear all of mitigation possibilities.
Janet, Janet, can I ask you for clarification on what this is about?
Sure.
I follow the
Oh.
Eugene news pretty carefully, but I'm not sure I've heard this one yet. What's this
Oh,
about?
well, it was proposed that the terminal where the roundhouse is, there in through that area, there Coos Bay is putting in an international deep water port there in Coos Bay, and they're extending their rail lines out and into Eugene, which will become the terminal, the main terminal for the rail lines that will be coming in, and it will cause an increased rail line traffic with longer
Oh my God.
mile-long trains,
Oh my-
double-decker trains. And so I heard directly from Travis today. David Parody was the one who called me from FRA. He's been here strengthening those tracks, making sure that those tracks are safe. And with the increased weight of those rail cars, and I'm also working with a CERT, Community Emergency Responder Training. I'm not aware of any evacuation routes, and I'd like that to be part of the corner piece of mitigation once we get involved with the talks.
Okay, so Briandra, you're good with taking this to the Health and Safety Committee, talking about it, and fantastic. And Den, just to clarify for you,
Yeah.
what you're talking about is correct. Is that the Bethel Neighborhood Association stopped them from putting in that fueling station?
Right.
What this is a different it's a different animal. This, what they're talking about, and we talked about it at a couple of meetings, is that they're talking about increasing the rail line, making it wider, and having, 12 1-mile long trains through the Whitaker a day that will be double decker, that will be coming from the new port, if the new port even happens at this point, because it was all federally funded. So yeah, so we'll see, but it's good. I agree with Janet to stay ahead of the game. Doriandra and I just talked about it the other day. Doriandra, what? Go ahead.
Yeah, just Dan, I'm going to put the project in the chat for you, and I just want to let you know too, Dan. Stephen and I already went through a whole interview process. This was a weird email that popped up into the Gmail that was really kind of laissez-faire, and so I grabbed it, and then Stephen and I did an interview with this. What would you call it, Stephen? They were I don't want to say a marketing group, but
it's the outreach consultants responsible for identifying stakeholders so that or indicating certain stakeholders. It's remarkable that they had not at that point spoken to the city or to anyone significant.
Linnell mentioned that, yes.
But so the takeaway now is that our comments, some were not even put into the community part of it. Were entered though, and they were part of the Coos Bay Commission meeting, which I have the link for if you want to see. There was a lot of people there complaining about environmental impact. So we've done what we can to mitigate this, but it's all pending. So there's the project and the link, and then I'll send you the YouTube of that commission meeting that we were talking about.
Do you mind emailing him that stuff, Doriandra, as well, so we make sure that he gets it?
Sure.
Fantastic. Okay, so that 10-minute, Janet, thank you very much. That's great information to have.
Could Doriandra send me that link as well, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Julie?
Yeah, real quick, Margaret. I just we were talking about it before the meeting started. I wanted to make a quick announcement that I am leaving on a month-long vacation starting tomorrow. I will not be present at the March meetings, so we're going to need to figure something out as far as secretary. I will be present in April, but due to some changes in my life circumstances, it's not going to be possible for me to serve at the board in any capacity other than coordinating the Art in the Parks grant in the coming year. So just kind of FYI on all of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. You've done a fantastic job this year, and you will be missed. All right. Let's, like I said, we have a pretty busy agenda. The first thing is, and thank you for your reminder, Julie. We need to approve the minutes. They were sent out in an email from last.
Right.
Was it? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, so we only had one set of minutes for last month because we did not have a general meeting. These were the minutes for January 15th, the board meeting minutes.
Okay.
And I sent that link out in an email. And as we know, it's the same ongoing document for all the minutes in Google Drive, one for general, one for board meeting. So I move that we approve those minutes unless there is discussion.
Yeah, there's Den.
Oh, we can't hear you, Dan.
Turn my mic on. So Julie, I had a look at the minutes that you sent when you sent them, and I was interested to see who the attendees were, and I didn't see any attendees listed in the minute. Did I miss something? You're muted, Julie.
So I have it up right now, and because of the change in the format, I think is maybe why you're not seeing that. So what I did was I copy and pasted the agenda for 115 at the top of the minutes, and they're kind of large format centered. And then if you go down to the very bottom of the agenda, you'll see it says meeting notes by Julie Bowman. There's a little talk about why the structure of the minute notes have changed. And then I've got board present as me, you, Chris, Derek, Janet, Margaret being absent.
No, this is the board meeting you're talking about.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, I'm concerned about the general meeting.
We didn't have one.
We didn't have one in January. That's why there's no.
The Feb one, the most recent February one.
Right. We don't. We'll approve
those
the minutes
aren't
for
up
that
yet.
next month.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
We'll approve the minutes for that next month. We'll approve the minutes for the February general meeting and the board meeting at the same time.
Yep.
Oh,
They're not
okay.
up yet, but they will be before I leave town. They'll be
Okay,
up tonight.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. So is there any more discussion about the minutes? I second that we approve them.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Chris, I don't see anything from you, but
I can't find the thing. I'm just going to say aye.
okay, perfect. So it looks like
All right,
minutes
it's
for
unanimous.
115 passed unanimously. Thank you.
Fantastic. So now I'm going to hand over the meeting to Doriandra, who, again, I just have to say, I mean, you know, sometimes I talk to Doriandra every day. Sometimes I talk to her once a week. Sometimes every other day, but she still amazes me with her work and determination and how much that she's doing to move us forward and with this grant. So Doriandra, thank you so much for all of your work and dedication.
Thank you, Margaret. I appreciate that. All right, we are almost there. Today, the last signature from the state was sent over, so we should be now moving to the Office of Contracts and Procurements, and hopefully we'll be funded. So it has been a long ride just to get started, and a lot of it was because of the shift in administration and pauses and all kinds of things. So we're pretty much ready to go, though. So I sent you all the Healthy Homes Program policy, and I just wondered if there was any comments or thoughts on that. I know Dan did some notes on that. Let me share it with everybody. And let's see here.
So Janet, I'm going to mute you because you're making a bunch of noise in the
Oh,
background.
it's my dogs. I'll mute it.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so I can't see you guys when I'm on this sheet. So But I think Den had his hand up, right?
Right, I did.
Okay.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, I saw some of your notes in here. I just don't know.
Yeah, let me go to my version of that because I can't scroll through yours. So let me go to
Okay.
mine.
I could,
Okay.
your notes are right there. It says format bold font.
Yeah, so I can scroll through mine if I go back to my page, and so, but I can't scroll through Doriandra's screen share. So just a couple of questions. Let's see. The WCC now carries the following insurance policy: directors and leaders liability. What does that constitute, Doriandra? What's that all about?
Sure, that's basically omission and errors for anything the board may do or staff. It's part of just taking care of everything we do so that we don't make
Okay.
mistakes. Yeah.
But is that in relation to the Healthy Homes Grant
This is
specifically or blanket?
no required for the Healthy Homes Grant.
So it applies only to the Healthy Homes Grant?
No, we have the policy now, and so if we had other grants, this would be applicable to that as well.
All right, but is it a blanket? Does it cover any instance of anything whatsoever, or is it only related to the Healthy Homes Grant?
It is not specifically tied to the Healthy Homes Grant, so it probably would cover any incident related to the board and the nonprofit side.
Okay. So I noticed that in the next paragraph down in reimbursements,
Mhm.
you have suggested that we set up an account with Lowe's.
Mhm.
And I was going to make an alternate suggestion that we make that account with Jerry's instead, because most of the contractors locally use Jerry's rather than Lowe's or Home Depot.
Okay, I think Vicki Lynn made some calls to see what would be the easiest company to set up this type of agreement with. And I think if I remember correctly, part of our choice for going with Lowe's was simply the location rather than going out to the airport. But we are happy to look at that more. I know Vicki Lynn's on this call. Can you
Well,
hear us, Vicki
I
Lynn?
mention this because as somebody who's been in this area for decades doing, remodels, house flips, and all kinds of stuff like that, that most people in this area, most of the contractors, they use Jerry's rather than Lowe's.
Okay, I'll call them tomorrow and
Hmm.
see if they have that capacity because I think we did this quite some ways back in the waiting to get started. So I'll look at that.
Okay, super.
Just
Uh,
a comment on that real quick. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah.
I would agree with Ben because they're local. They're not a
Yeah,
corporate owned company. They are a locally owned company. And
that too.
yeah, we want to keep our money, as local as we can.
Yeah.
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 It may
Okay.
have just been that they don't do that. And so that's why we went to Lowe's, but we'll look into it.
Thank
Okay.
you. Janet?
Another comment.
Dan,
Excuse me.
I wanted,
Go ahead.
I concur with that suggestion. It's a local company and I'd like to keep the money, the grants, as much local economy as possible.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I thank you for that suggestion.
Okay.
Thank you. And I agree.
Next comment. So it's regarding homes outside of Whitaker. You have a sentence in here. Although the program is intended for Whitaker residents, adjacent communities may be served. I don't agree with that. I think that we're the Whitaker Community Council. We're not another neighborhood association, and this is by, for, and about Whitaker residents and Whitaker home improvements. And I don't think we should entertain any non-Whitaker applications for this grant.
I agree, but my reasoning is this. The last big grant that I managed, which was our ORAP grant, which was for rental assistance, there in all the data entry of the application, that was the first thing. Do you live in the Whitaker? And so those applicants would move straight to the list. But there were times when we didn't get enough people in the queue that were eligible to meet our grant deliverables. So that's why, and so many times we did go a little bit out of our borders. We helped folks in Train Song. downtown, Jefferson West Side. You know, we expanded when we needed to because we have to meet the deliverables of so many projects. So that's why I put this in there, and we would always, as we did in the ORAP grant, always prioritize them at the top.
Okay, yeah, I didn't realize you had problems getting enough Whitaker participants for this project. That's
Yeah, it was startling. I couldn't believe it, but it just kept happening. So I didn't want us to be in that because it took so much time last time. We had to stop and then figure out, well,
yeah,
so.
yeah, okay.
Briandra and I spent $250,000 in 2 months. Also because it's when I first came on the board or first became the chair, and your hands were kind of tied as far as what you could spend that money on.
Right.
You're talking about the rental assistance, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And so we had to,
wasn't too
in
much.
order to meet the deliverables, it's just a fail safe. That's it.
Next comment, Doriandra. Next comment, under confidentiality, it says that you recommend that the project costs per dwelling are not shared with the owner, the renter, or the landlord. That's confusing a bit.
Well, what is confusing to you? That we would do that, or
Are you saying that? Are you talking about a cost share? So maybe, say, a landlord or a property owner has some issues that are pretty severe, and you want to enter into a cost share with them? Is that the idea?
no, there is no cost share allowable in this grant. So what I mean by that is simply, if I may use the example, say Susan as a landlord needs an entire HVAC system, new doors and new windows. That represents a very large upgrade to her property. Now, say Joe's property down the street, all he needs is a wheelchair ramp and a couple ADA grab bars. What I'm trying to avoid is potential comments or negativity about like, oh, well, Susan's house was given X amount of money in repairs, and this other house was only given, $4,000. So trying to keep like an equity balance that doesn't cause tension in the neighborhood.
I think what you mean to say is that you recommend that the information about project costs per dwelling are not shared.
Okay.
Isn't that what you mean to say?
Yeah, exactly. Just the
Okay.
financials, just the
Okay,
financials.
I get it. That makes sense now. Maybe you could put in the word, I recommend that the information about project costs per dwelling are not shared with anyone.
That works better. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
So here's one that I find a bit troubling, and it's that if a specific project on one dwelling becomes extensive with excessive costs, the board will vote on the feasibility of the project. Does the board really need to become involved in a project by project?
No, definitely not. Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
save you all from that. This was actually gleaned from a grant cohort meeting where other awardees were discussing how they have managed it in the past. And these were like, larger groups, Habitat for Humanity, and also our grantors. And I think that the point here was that if we dove into a house and found that it was just a complete can of worms and needed like an entire structural new foundation or overhaul where we were going to damage our deliverable timelines and budget, then we would like collectively come back and make the decision, okay, we can't do all that, but instead, we're going to do A, B, or C. So this is really, I don't want to even get into this with, like, we hope this doesn't happen, but I just figured like if we get some really incredibly frustrating project, we should be able to discuss it and find a solution if, our contractor can't give us guidance or OHA can't.
Yeah. Isn't there a language, I believe I've read the language that states that if you tear into a project and you find that it is a rat's nest and you decide to not move forward, that you you do that. You just don't move forward.
Right.
Isn't that language already contained somewhere in the document?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I did put it down here in the right to refuse.
There you go. Mhm.
So yeah, why don't we take this whole section out? I'll just work on this a little bit later, but we could do a strike through there. I'll just highlight it for now. But you're right. This is a better way that I described it here. We'll retain the autonomy to remove applicants or decline to continue with renovations if it's discovered scope of project is too extensive for WCC to safely and equitably yeah. Gotcha. That was kind of duplicate. Thank you.
Yeah, and then board involvement is not required, and then you get to run your own show.
Okay.
And you also are going to hire a project coordinator, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, we really need one.
Yeah, I should think that this kind of a decision, it will be fairly, eyeballs, obvious between you and the coordinator. And if you find that a project is more extensive than you realize when you get into it, that the decision to shut it down would be yours and the project coordinators.
Right, and the contractor probably more so
Exactly.
than the project coordinator, but
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, good. Thank you for that feedback.
Okay, and the EWEB, the EWEB rebate program. It says, with permission from our grantors, the WCC may claim the $800, which is, what isn't that? Isn't that the federal tax rebate?
That's just the one that I'm seeing on eWeb right now. So it's their specific program.
Oh, I wonder where they're getting that money. That must be a federal grant
Probably.
that they are getting, I'm thinking.
Right.
Okay, well, that's good for the WCC.
Yes.
And I should think it would come to the WCC. I don't know, are there complications with that? It should actually go to the homeowner?
No, that's the clause here is that I asked our grantors, may we combine these rebates? And if so, where does that money go? And they said, absolutely, our organization should retain the money.
Oh.
And then we would put it into a fund to do other projects when we need that money. So
so it goes to the WCC or it goes to the nonprofit?
It goes to the grant under
Okay.
the nonprofit, right?
That's a wonderful thing. Yeah, it'll fold back into the grant and be available for other project work. That's
Exactly. So we can turn around and use that 800 to buy a window, and it's like we're going to feed it back into our funding for the.
Is it a flat $800, or is it based on the service that's included? Because I know that eWeb has different rebates for different services or dwellings or types, right?
Right. There was some other iterations of this, but this one seemed the most applicable to the work we're doing. So if we want to go into one of those other formats, we have permission to do that. So I should change this, claim the 800 or alternate amount, because there's different amounts. So of rebate. There we go. Thanks, Chris. That's great.
And my last comment is regarding the landlord memorandum of understanding. So it says review is needed of the lawyer's draft document. Is that the WCC's nonprofit lawyer?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Let me show you that document if I may.
So hold on before we move on. Janet, you had a question?
Let me finish my thing here. So the lawyer's draft document, which places rent increase restrictions or any size of project for 3 years. Well, that's a really complicated issue, I should think. So maybe we do need to see the lawyer's draft document.
It's complex, and we've spent a lot of time in the public health and safety meeting trying to parse this out. I had a great conversation with Travis D., who's the landlord, and Thea about trying to understand what this would look like. And I want to prevent barriers for people to allow us to do this. And frankly, the lawyer's document that I'll share with you now is really intense. And, you know, in my mind, we were just going to have a simple little, you know, MOU that was not so complex. But this is what, let's see, did that work? No, let me try again.
Doriandra, can I ask you, is this MOU with the landlord, is this required by the grantor, by OHA?
It is not at all. This is something that the board and the Public Health and Safety meeting had in the past expressed an interest in doing, so that we would prevent people from receiving a huge upgrade on their rental and then moving the person out and raising the rents. Yeah, we want
Increasing
to
the
stop the flow of
Yeah.
unhoused at any means. So that was kind of the understanding of this. And Sarah made an excellent document here. Let me scroll down to the parts that are tricky or that I'm unsure about if this is what we want to do. She has set these terms.
That's Dan.
That was fun.
Yeah, I just muted you, Dan, so you have to unmute yourself when you're ready.
Sorry, there we go.
Okay. She has set these at this affordability term, meaning that the rent could not be raised over 30% of the gross monthly income. And
Oh, Can I comment
That's a
here real
conundrum.
quick?
Yeah,
That's a complication that I think that this text should be changed so that it actually states that the landlord will not raise the rent above the current level rather than 30% of the gross monthly income of low-income residents, because then you're going to have all these mathematical complications going at each other like this. And I don't think that's necessary. I don't think we want to do that. The lawyer would love it if we would complicate everything, you know, to make it all, you know, so that we need more of her services. But I think that this is bad language.
I do too.
Oh.
And so can I just finish real quick?
Yeah.
I wrote to her today and my point to her was, let's see, as income shifts constantly, and this is something I dealt with again on that last rental assistant program, it's total mayhem because we're verifying their eligibility at the point of application.
Right.
And people move in, people divorce. And so for us to keep track of these people's incomes,
it's not.
to track this MOU is nuts. And so what I had originally asked her to do is just to indicate in the MOU, no current rent raise, like the current rent as it is, should not be raised for the biennium term, with the exception of state guidance that is issued yearly. So
yes,
I think Thea told me every September, the state will say, okay, you can raise it 10% or
correct,
something.
or 9.9% or something. So there is a legal state sanctioned rental increase that landlords can do. So to put a 30% gross monthly income for low income residents is, I think this is an over complication that is going to potentially someone who's currently paying 32% of their income for rent, then suddenly somebody is going to lean on the landlord to lower their rent by 2% just because they're participating in the program. And I think you're going to have a lot of landlords say, hey, look, I'm not going to F with this. You guys can forget it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I mean, and she's done a very incredible, impeccable document, but many of these things, as you can see, this is like 8 or 9 pages. And frankly, this would scare me away. I don't
Can I ask you what she charged the WCC for this document?
This was a $300 document.
Yeah.
So
why did we need this from her?
Because our Public Health and Safety Committee, and we had talked about this a lot, that we were going to get this document. And when I went to our grantors and said, does anybody else have something like this, or what is the kind of current wind on where they're going? And they just said, no, you've got to agree with your lawyer how you want it done, and then have your board approve it. So
Okay, so I just want to make a comment here. So, and I did a little research myself on Oregon state law. Oregon state law, it's real simple. You can do a 10% increase a year in Eugene. That's what we have, really specific rights as renters. Now when we're talking about doing someone who's living in HUD housing, that's what this is referring to. This is not referring to Joe Schmo who lives with his wife and she works at the grocery store and he works at the gas station and they make too much money to qualify for HUD. And they just pay their rent for what it is. This, when she's talking about the no more than 30% of their income and what it can be raised, is the only thing I can find in here is talking about low income housing. Now, if you read what Oregon state law says, and what, especially in Eugene, the only time that they can raise it more is if there are major upgrades given to the property. Then they can raise the rent based on what the upgrades were done. So we have to have something in there that says that they're not going to do any rent increases based on the upgrades, that they'll just do whatever increases that they would do without them based on what the City of Eugene law is. So that's all that we need in there. Some of it, it will be, I haven't read through all of this, to be honest.
It's too much. Yeah.
Like you said, Doriandra, it's a lot, but as far as that goes, that we just need to say that you can't raise the rent or kick somebody out because we have all these upgrades and now you can rent this place for $3,000 a month because you have a new HVAC system.
Right.
You can do what the Oregon state law says, 10% or a percentage of the income if they are HUD or on a low assistance income housing. Otherwise, no.
Okay.
And but we do need something that states that.
I think what I'm going to do is just extrapolate what I believe we need, because it's not all of this. This is just 8 pages of intensity. I'll just pull what I think and then get that back to her and we'll just make it very simple. But one other thing, I don't know if Dan is still, looks like Dan's busy.
Yeah, and Julie has her hand raised.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Julie.
Well, the point I guess I was going to make is that 10% is a pretty hefty increase if you get it every year. We have rentals and we don't raise them 10% a year. I know that legally 9.9, I think, might be the amount this year. I don't know if we can prohibit rent increases for 3 years, but if you're renting for $1,500 and you get 150 rent increase, you feel that. And then the next year it's 167.50. Maybe my math is poor. Anyway, you see where I'm going. It can be a pretty big increase year on year. I don't know if we can stop them from doing that, but
No.
I thought that was the point, was don't raise your rent on people.
No, we can't. We have to be bound by whatever the state is doing, because we
Okay.
can't ask anybody to not follow state guidance. We just want to avoid the person that goes, great, now I have a technically new unit because everything's been upgraded, and I'm going to give notice to this person and then turn around and rent.
Sure. Yeah, they can't be kicked out, right?
Yeah, that's just all we were trying to do. And then Julie, I think, you were, I'm not sure if you were at that last one, but there was a really good conversation between Janet and Travis. Thea was ill that night, but the takeaway was just, we toggled back and forth a million times about, should we just set a bracket for, let's see, how would we say? Okay, so back to Joe's house that just got the wheelchair ramp and the ADA bar. That's a smaller amount of work. So we could say, okay, don't raise the rent for 1 year. Then back to Susan's house that got all new stuff for the HVAC, windows and everything. That would be, we'd call that 3 year. But then when I think we toggled back and forth and it just seemed like ridiculous, because then we have that equity issue again well, this person's beholden to 3 years. Well, how much did they get? So
Mhm.
I think that the takeaway between the two landlords talking with me and at our meeting was just like, set the limit for the 3 years, which makes sense to me. That was what I wanted to do because it follows the biennium and it keeps traction. So does everybody agree with that? That we just keep, no matter what happens to the house, they're going to pause for rent raise for 3 years.
Within, and only do what's within the law.
Well, it's within the law. That's it.
Then I don't think you need to talk about rent raise. What you need to talk about is that they can't kick people out and rent to new people. Because if they
They
can
also-
still rent 10%, if they can still increase 10% a year, I'm not aware of the provision where you can come to your tenant and say, guess what? I did a bunch of renovations. Your rent's not 1,000, it's 3,000.
I looked it up. It's there. That
You
is
can
the law.
raise it
That
or you
is
can
the
kick
law.
You can raise
Yeah.
it or you can kick them out and re-rent it.
No, you can raise it to the point to where they can't afford to live there. I mean,
Right.
we just need to say you're not, and in 3 years, if we keep it in the 3-year mark, in 3 years, it's not going to be new anymore.
Sure.
In 3
Um,
years, they're not going to be able to say,
I'm gonna
Hey,
look
we-
at that real quick because I keep really close tabs on rental stuff because of when I did real estate and the fact that we manage like 8 units. So
Mhm.
that's a question that must be new. Anyway,
yeah,
it doesn't.
I don't know. I just did some research on this specific thing, and it's different if this is regarding HUD housing. That's what the lawyer is talking about here, or
Not HUD housing. This is all housing.
right,
not
but
specific.
she's talking about the no more than 30% of your income and all of that. That's also under HUD housing. So, and it's they can raise your rate differently if you are on a low income housing than they can if you're working at the grocery store and the gas station and just paying your rent. Then it's a 10%. But that's why we just say no more than what the law allows, and that they can't increase it based on upgrades. And it keeps it simple.
Yeah, I can agree with that, Margaret. I think that, if we're paying the lawyer hundreds of dollars to come up with a document where she hasn't done her basic research to understand the issue of 1.1 of affordability, then, I'm not fond of this lawyer particularly. Can you tell? So I think that this needs a major revision right here, the affordability clause of 1.1. There's state law to consider. This 30% gross monthly low income, this is BS, and it overcomplicates the matter. And it indicates to me that the lawyer did not do her homework and doesn't understand the issue because she's not a renter and she probably doesn't own rental properties. So I think that Margaret's comments are the best I've heard about how this needs to be handled. Julie and Margaret are both very well connected to this issue. But clause 1.1 here is completely a non-starter.
I agree.
Yeah, all of this, low income, none of that matters. All we need to do is just say, hey, you have to keep it within the law for 3 years. That's it.
Yeah, there's other things in here that she put in that I don't know where she got. This landlord shall complete all improvement according to the schedule. We're doing the improvements. I guess she just did not understand what I was asking. So anyway, I'll work on this tomorrow and just cut it down to a simple thing, and I'll send it all to you as soon as we get that.
Thank you. Yeah, just got that thing, Doriandra.
Yeah, it's absurd. It gives me a headache. So, okay.
Janet, did you have a different comment to make? We can't hear you, Janet. You're on mute.
Mute, okay, and take my hand down. Doriandra, the eligibility form, does that conform, since this is meant to identify and be a resource for low income? Does the application for healthy homes conform with low income or that bracket, that tier of folks needing remedial help with their housing? Am I making that plain? Does the
Well-
actual application, those parameters conform with what low or low income housing would allow?
Okay,
So-
let me take you back a step. This is the application that I wrote and created.
Uh-huh.
And as you go down into it, these are some of the program elements at the top. But as we go down into it, this is
Mhm.
our, you know, Whitaker identification, then the type of home, then all the things that they are hoping to be addressed. Then when we get down to the income eligibility, it's very clear here. This program is for low-income households having below 80% AMI. So then it goes on to say, if you're a landlord, your tenant must meet this eligibility criteria. Then they're directed to a link, which gives a huge expanded explanation of this. And then they go into a quick category, which in the last ORAP rental housing grant, which was also how I did the form, immediately if somebody is already on benefits such as SSI, SNAP, or OHP, they go immediately to a green part of eligibility. So then you go down a little bit and then you have the actual chart that can
Okay.
help people understand like how much they can earn a month and, you know, or a year based on the size of the family. If you have a family of 4, you can earn $5,942 and be eligible. And then
Oh.
from there, it dives into how many people and so on and so forth. So it kind of self-explains itself.
Yeah.
Goes. Does that
Okay.
help?
Yeah, so Doriander, what my point is wouldn't the application first and foremost identify if they're eligible? That is, income would, as I listen to you, it sounds like all this contract language, the most essential part to determine whether they're eligible, I would think would be listed first. Is that the way the application is formatted?
Let's see, let's open it back up. Are you able to see this?
Not yet.
Yes.
Okay,
And yes, it's all, there's an income eligibility chart. It's all right there.
But my point is it at the beginning
oh, I
of
got
the
you.
application so that you know
Yep.
right at the get-go, okay, this person is not eligible. We'll
Yep.
go through the rest of the applications to make those folks a priority. In so doing, you're cutting down your time loss in going through, fielding through all this work. First thing, this is after all a grant that's income eligible. So I would think on the application, that would be the first and foremost understanding.
It's a great point. I'll move those
Yeah.
categories in the ledger so that they're right at the top. Yep, great idea. Thank you.
I
And I
also have a,
appreciate Dan's points. Thank you, Dan, for your points on this. Thank you.
thanks. I have a comment that I'm going to pull up my page on the AMI. Okay, so it talks about eligibility. It's a big issue, of course. It's kind of the core issue here.
Mhm.
So income eligibility, I have to say that if we look at the annual AMI requirements, so say you're a family of 3,
Okay,
and the AMI requirement is almost, well, $64,000. Okay. First of all, nearly, I would say 90% of Whitaker residents are eligible for this, okay, which is great.
Yeah.
But the box above this, which is income eligibility, it says check all the boxes that apply.
Mhm.
Someone in the home is eligible for benefits such as SSI or SNAP or OHP. Okay. So the issue here is SSI. Okay. There are plenty of people that live in households that make an income that's greater than $64,000, where one of the residents in that household is on SSI.
right. Yeah,
So-
this is just, you're right. And so the way that the grant is structured, we are required to get data and proof from every head of household.
Right.
So this box for me, or this thing right here is here. Like, I can show you how this works, how it worked on the last one. This is just data for me that then I know what we're collecting from this household, one of the major elements. So it
You
is
have to report this back to the grantors, is that correct?
every single thing, the
Right.
aggregate data based on race, how many, if there's minors, what like, this may be the most exhaustive reporting one that I've ever done. You can see kind of down here, there's something called the reeled survey, which has to be done for even kids under 12 in the house. So yes, we're gathering tons of data. And I think I see your point, though, that this is just kind of redundant. But I can show you why I do it.
Okay.
Let's see, there's these spreadsheets that I build, they go into the application goes into a larger format, which looks like, oh, okay. Something is wrong with this link. Okay, wow, this looks like it's all been gone. Oh, got it. I'm in the wrong thing. Our drive is so crazy. It is crazy. Okay, there we go. Housing is healthcare. Let me share this over with us here. Okay. And it's really a bummer having two different drives now. We should talk about that at some time. The city, we've got the workspace city drive, and then we have our old one, and it is very complex. Okay.
Is the city requiring us to have a drive that's somehow controlled by them or under their auspices somehow?
Well,
No, they pay for it.
yeah, they pay for the new version that we have, which is great on the one hand, but that's what I'm saying. We have all of our other data in our original old drive. So it's really confusing. Okay, here we go. Sorry.
We're going to merge them at some point. It's on the agenda to do that. It's just a huge job.
I feel this is somewhat dangerous. If the city of Eugene decides to drop it somehow, then all of our data evaporates. I have a feeling that we should maintain control over all of our own data, pay our own fees for storage, and whatever it is. The city of Eugene should not be in control of our data.
I fully agree, Dan. It gives me nightmares thinking that we would lose all of the massive stuff that I mean, it would be a complete institutional disaster if something happened to it. So, okay, so this was the ORAP grant, and sorry to get in the weeds here, but just so you guys know, every time someone does an application, then it comes back to me and it goes into these categories, right? And this, I know it's your head spinning, probably trying to look at the screen, but this is how that AMI eligibility question, it immediately will load for me there to see what I then have to do. So as you can see, this is just a vast body of data that and so I just color code them, and then when the project coordinator that we hire, he or she then will see the application come in, and they'll know what they have to do just to get there. So just to get through the incredible laborious eligibility project. So I hope that helps.
Complications, yeah. So my concern was just that there's a little bit of conflicting eligibility requirements, because if any household that has a resident that is on SSI is eligible, it's probable or possible that their annual AMI does not meet the requirements.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They could have a total household income of well above 64,000, say, for a household of three.
They really could, right?
But one of them is receiving SSI, and therefore does that obviate the income eligibility chart? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got it. I see what you mean. I have to collect whether they are for our grant reporting. So yeah, I see what you mean, but you're right. If you had 3 individuals in a home and just one was on disability, but the other 2 were, you know, working full-time jobs elsewhere, they would not probably make that income thing. So I was all excited that the 80% AMI seemed so generous and that so many households could apply.
It's
But-
incredibly generous, yes.
But then, I mean, then it's kind of setting barriers for families that are multi-generational, that a lot of people live in the same house, and that's going to be a shame because they won't get eligibility then. So it's, we'll see how it goes. I think I told y'all I'm just going to start with our former project at the East Blair Housing Co-op because all those units need work. And that'll be a kind of a training wheels for us to get going. Julie's got a good point here. Let me see.
I was just digging into this question about whether you in fact can raise rent because of renovations. Because like I said, I've done a couple landlord boot camps and work really hard to not violate this eviction law with my people. There's currently only a handful of reasons why you can no cause evict someone in Oregon. If they're your tenant, if they're in the first 12 months of tenancy, if you are selling the property, meaning you're under contract, you got to provide a signed contract for sale, not just post it for sale with a realtor. If the property has been demolished, if you're going to renovate to the point where the property will not be inhabitable. So if my property has 2 toilets and I'm going to renovate 1 bathroom, it's still inhabitable. If it's only got 1 bathroom and I'm going to tear it out, it's not inhabitable anymore. Or if I'm going to move in my relative, and they give a list of who the relatives are. So
We're not talking about evicting people, Julie. We're
here's
talking
my
about.
point, Janet. Here's my point. I
Margaret.
don't think
It
Margaret,
says right here, yes, landlords can raise rent after major upgrades to a property in Oregon, as long as they follow the state's rent control laws. And I looked it up in Eugene, and yes, they can. If they do upgrades after a certain amount of money, they can raise the rent, not evict people.
they can raise it up to the rent control law, Janet or Margaret, which is
No,
10%.
as they can raise it.
Agree to
past
disagree
that.
on that one.
Okay,
I don't agree.
I'm reading it right here. I mean, I did this with Doriandra on the phone, and all we have to do is just say that you can't do it more than what the law allows without an upgrade. That's all we have to. I mean, we can go around about this, and we can agree to disagree.
Yeah,
But
we can. I think we're beating a dead horse here, so it doesn't really matter. I don't think we need to specify it, but if you want to, how about it? Don't do that to your tenants though, because I think you'll be in violation of the law. Just saying. Don't renovate and raise rent more than 10%.
No, more than the law allows.
Which currently is 9.9%.
Right. So, but we don't have to say 9.9% because it does change every year.
It does change, yeah.
I think
Correct.
we're debating from 2 different points, Margaret. It does change
You're
every year.
saying not to put it in the contract at all.
I'm saying that Oregon law already provides for what you're saying. You can't raise more than current rent
You
control.
can if you do upgrades.
I disagree. But anyway. So it's
Okay.
not going to hurt it to have it in there.
Okay. Janet
Okay.
has a question, and then we should move on to the budget. We can't hear you, Janet.
Janet, nobody can hear you talking.
I believe the grant is being, the upgrades, as you pointed out, Margaret, would have to be funded by the landlord in order to advantage that raise rate ability.
And
Because
that may be correct.
Oh, okay, let me finish. Because the funding for the upgrade is being provided by a grant, I think that could hamper or prevent that landlord for taking that claim, that upgrade right away from the landlord, because primarily the landlord did not pay for it.
Right.
So that's a point I wish to make on this. And I
Right.
think I have one question real quick, Doriandra. Are these applications submitted, done electronically or paper pencil?
They are electronic for now.
Okay.
And so
Thank
if we know of a community member that has a barrier or, they're not internet
Right.
savvy, then I'll create a paper version and go and meet them at the house and help them fill it out. So.
And in revamping it, I think the marketing for this for Whitaker residents, I like Den's suggestion that I think maybe it could possibly be not communicating, getting it out there, because I'm sure there are a lot of people here in Whitaker and Train Song that could really use the grant. And I agree with him on that it should be centered here.
Yeah, it will be.
That's all I'm going to say. Thank
Dan?
you.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I think that Janet raises a really interesting point, and it is that if the landlords themselves have not paid for the renovations, then they potentially might not be able to benefit from any rental increases. So, I mean, aside from the obvious, state law about 9.9 or 10% changes every year of what's legally allowable for a rental increase. So, I wonder if you might be able to ask OHA, because there got to be some smart heads, at the state level that they already understand this issue, and this probably already come up, and so they may have a very good answer to this conundrum. So maybe we should check in with them, see if Janet's point is a good one there, and see what they recommend about. We can change our clause in the contract to comport with state law and common sense.
Great. Good idea. Thank you. Okay. So I guess it looks like there's still some massaging we need to do for both the program policies and my application. So I'll work on those and then probably send a finished draft to everybody if that's okay, rather than take time at the next meeting. So we're just going to get all on board. And then
what do we need to do to make it so you can provide this and we can get the grant funds? Because we need to be able to make payroll. And we're way behind the 8 ball, and we're not sure what's happening with the CDC grant. So what do we need to do to help you move forward to get the money?
There's nothing that needs to be done. I corrected the last thing today. That's what I was saying at the top of this meeting, is that it's gone. Our grant document has been completely amended and corrected, and now it's going to the state for signature. And then from there, it goes to Office of Contracts and Procurement. So basically, I'm done with all of the minutia that it took to just launch it. And now, according to them, it's potentially 2 weeks out for payment. So
okay,
this grant can backdate to October 1st when we were supposed to get it, but the state had so many changes in their policy and the insurance requirements and the up and the down that we can backdate, which is great because all of this development work I've been doing and working with Vicki Lynn to get our new spreadsheet built, all of that we can backdate. So we're ready to go. It's just we're just home.
So what do we need to vote on for you? We need to vote on the budget?
Well, yeah, we're going to go over to the budget now, because that's what I was saying. These other two parts that we went through, program policy and the application, you guys all gave me great feedback, all correct, and revised those and send them all out probably by Friday so that we can all see them, and then we have them ready.
We will not be here to vote. And if we're going to do a vote by email, we all have to vote.
Well, do we really need to vote on it, or can you trust me?
I'm okay with saying that I trust you with it. Is everyone okay with trusting Doriandra to make the updates that are needed and doing it with the Health and Safety Committee, which is what she's been doing, and we'll just review and vote on the budget?
Great.
which to me, that's all we've ever done in the past is just
Correct.
voted on the money. So
Yeah, let's get over to the money then. Let's
Janet, you had a question?
No, I was just concurring with
Oh,
that.
okay, great. All right,
Yeah,
fantastic.
great.
So let's vote on the budget, which is what we're really here to do. Thank you for all of your work, Doriandra, and sharing that.
Sure. I want to thank Vicki Lynn. She went through my complicated Excel sheet and got this all sorted out and into our Google spreadsheet so we can look at it easy. Thank you, Vicki Lynn. This is fabulous. So she's got, let's see, let me go over, let's look at our overall budget. So this award is $750. This represents year 1, year 2, and year 3. So
How much?
there's 3 years. And so our
$750.
we're going to be working with $250,000 each year. So if we,
I was teasing you. You said $750. I was just trying to lighten
Oh,
the mood.
oh, I
I
couldn't
was
hear you.
making a joke, I just
Yeah.
tried to laugh a little bit. That's all.
See, I can't see your face when I'm in the spreadsheet, so
Okay.
it was lost on me. But
It's
anyway,
just a joke.
so these categories that you see to the left are from my budget that was given to OHA, and then they approved it. So we have up to a 24% mutability between categories without me having to create an entire new budget, and then everything grinds to a salt, and then they have to reapprove it. So these are pretty much what will stay within. Things always change, as we know. So I do expect we'll have more expenses with equipment, with maybe tariffs. I don't know what's going to happen with that. So we have that changeability. Moving down here, you can see she's got categories. So for instance, our subcontractors here, we have $6,000 per year to hire like social media graphics, promotions. That's what that means. Then down here, we've got our contractors. They'll each make about $40,000 per year if we're staying on grant timelines. So then we move into our direct administration cost. We've got $1,000 budgeted per year to do our taxes. Legal fees. Now this is a bummer because I should have put more money here, but we are really going to get, like for instance, the thing we were looking at about the MOU. I intend to get any legal documents that we need really upfront from the program. They're not really going to change as we move through the 3-year biennium. So this looks nerve-wracking to me that it's okay, $1,200 each year, but essentially I'm pretty sure we're going to get everything we need for $3,600, or we need a different lawyer. So this insurance number has to change because I know you guys are probably sick of hearing about the pollution liability, but I went back to the state. They agreed that was ridiculous. And so now our actual costs for the insurance are not $8,865. They're actually $3,895 a year. So that is going to change immensely. This number will be more like 10,000 approximate. So anyway, this is just a work in progress, but I should have changed that for you guys before we looked at this. So let's get rid of that. And I'm just going to put approximate 10,000 rather than that 29,000. So we'll get this out. This is 3,895 and 3,895 as well. And again, let's see, is this the right? This is, 11,775. Okay, we'll go 11,775.
Shouldn't that number be 3333? Okay, there you go. You've changed that.
Yep, there we go. Okay, that's the accurate, give or take a couple dollars, because we're still waiting on the last invoice, but that was a massive victory. I wasn't sleeping at night thinking we would lose that much money that could have been going into housing. So yeah, this changes a little bit then. This is actually 18,375. And I will clean these up too. Wait a minute. These are all, oh, that changes too. 60905. Sorry, folks. I should have had this done first. 6095. Oh no. Let's see. I want to get out of that. I think you go back. There we go. And where was I? Let's see. Oh, this. Okay. We'll go here. Fix this one and fix this one. Okay, great. So then we've got other direct costs. I put money in for our organization to do training and capacity building. This could be one of those neat conferences for the Center of Nonprofit of Oregon where you do, board training, board development, or I go and learn more stuff about good leadership. There's conferences down there that are great. So that's kind of a, we can wiggle around in that category. So we've got 800 for the 3 years there, 266 per year. Then this is a big one. Each of these huge grants supports a yearly CBO meeting. That's a community-based organization meeting, and they tend to have them in Portland. I've been to one for a couple of years back, and it was just amazing because you meet all the other neat cohorts around the state that are working on the program. So I went ahead and put 3 people there. So that would be myself and a staff or a chair or 2 board folks or however we all want to do it. But we've got money for that travel. That's hotel rooms, and they feed you all. And so anyway, that's a great event that we can look forward to. Other costs, this is a real important one. We want to get the postcards out into the neighborhood. So the city back and forth, whether they're going to pay for stuff anymore, they probably won't for this project because this is the nonprofit side of it. But we've got money there so that every resident in the Whitaker is going to get an amazing postcard that says, this is what we're doing. Here's how to apply. We'll do that also at the top of the grant. Then we've got in here, I allocated $11,320 for advertising. And this seems really high, but in the past, I think about the average for these big grants we've run about 15,000 in advertising. So I wanted to shoot a little lower. These will be spots on KLCC, KRVM, Eugene Weekly, and whatever else. So we'll be running about 4,000 a year in advertising. A lot of it we can get them to do for free. KRVM always loves to hear from me, and they give us really low rates. So I also thought we could do one of those neat drone advertisements. We did one for the the rental assistant one. We hired a fellow that did a beautiful drone shot of the Whitaker, and it was a big winner. So we've got some money there. Then again, there's more money here for development and training. This would be, again, smaller grant cohort meetings, primarily within the state. Not the state, excuse me, our Lane County. So we've got money there. And again, if we don't spend money in these pockets, we get to move it around up to 24%. And we can always find ways to use this because every penny has to be spent. So that's the hard part, as Dan knows. You can't just not spend it. We have to get to the end of the biennium and have everything spent. So materials, this is the tricky one. Project materials. This is like really silly stuff like a roll of duct tape if the contractor runs out or, that kind of thing. So this again has some changeability. We've got our office supplies, our printer, ink, flyers, all that. Then this gets more into the body of it. This is the carpet and laminate flooring for our project deliverables. We're going to spend about $19,000 a year on that if tariffs don't go nuts. We've got the doors and windows budgeted there for $13,166 per year. And then the 88 upgrades, this is all the grab bars, ramps, door widening materials that we need. Moving down to equipment, as you can see again over in this column, this is a 3-year number, but per year we're going to be spending $23,333. And this can be the HVAC systems, and we move down to the air purifiers. I'm worried that this won't be enough, but again, we may toggle. Then we do have to buy one tool, which will stay through the project. It's a thermal imaging scanner that's needed for heat loss detection. So this directly relates back to the Healthy Homes assessment that I want our contractors to do before we create the scope of work. So every resident will get this done, so they'll know what their house is like. So, and again, I'm sorry, guys, I can't see who's raising their hand, but I'm
That's
almost,
okay. Let's wait until we get to the end,
yeah,
Brianna.
thank you.
Okay.
Almost down to the end here. So we've got $235,183 that we are spending. And again, this number is a little off because I didn't correct the insurance bar. So we're going to get much closer to the 250,000. This is, when we think about how this all works out, this is technically our, let's see, that's Vicki Lynn, are you on? I guess she's not. Okay. That's
Actually,
okay.
she just took her mute off. Vicki Lynn, we can't hear you.
Oh, she was worried about that. Let's see. Okay. Okay. I'll try to explain. Yeah, she was worried that her sound wasn't happening. So let's see. Where's indirect? Let me go back up and see if I can explain this better.
So will that money go to indirect expenses? Is that what that is?
Yes. Yeah, because this number needs to be a little bit higher. Total income, total expenses. Let's jump to over here and look. This is our yearly. This is coming up on 2025. We're already in February, but this is a month by month snapshot. This is kind of more granular, but it's really helpful. I'm so glad we can see this because it is kind of stark, it's down to the wire per month, but it's really helpful. Let me go down to the bottom and see if we've got a more clear part at the bottom that explains. Okay, yeah, let's go back. Sorry, folks. Let's go back over here because it's much easier to understand. There we go. So yes, correct. These are our indirect. This is what's left over. And again, that money will change and flux as we go into the program. So I'm going to hop off this and come back to where I can see everybody. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, actually, Janet was first.
Sorry.
Before you close that out, my quick question is the 44K at the end of the 3 years, is that income for the WCC for running the project?
The direct, yes, indirect. There's so many terms for indirect. It's diminutus, I can't say it. Indirect and administration costs. So correct. This is what it takes to run the system.
Okay, so just to be clear, the WCC is going to be making $14,814 per year as a fee for running the program. Is that correct?
Yeah, but
Give or take.
yeah, give or take. I mean, with fluctuation of prices, that money is kind of our contingency money.
Okay, I get it. Okay, so let me ask you this. There's a standard percentage that nonprofits typically get for pass-throughs and other business that they do in support of other funds and other initiatives. And so it's typically 10% for a nonprofit. And so I'm wondering, does the WCC receive a fee of any kind for running this project? Is it budgeted?
So looking back on the Excel sheet, which I couldn't share with you guys last time, it was maddening. When it breaks, I showed you like a little snapshot of it though. And when we look at it, the direct costs of the program were $6,078, Our total indirect costs, which are for admin, for contingency, running over the lines, paying the lawyer, or not paying the lawyer, I already budgeted that, but that amount was $71,037.
Which also includes an administrative fee for the WCC. If give
Does
or
it?
take. Yeah, that's give or take. So when we were doing the last grant, we had to take some money out of indirect expenses it was for an unforeseen issue that we had. I don't remember exactly what it was, but that money was there and it was grant compliant for us to use that money and be able to pay it. And it didn't cost the neighborhood association anything. Over the course of 3 years, something may happen.
Exactly. All kinds of things happen. And frankly,
So there's that so there's 71,000 in indirect expenses plus the 14 at the bottom.
not plus, not,
That's inclusive of the 71 grand total.
yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Does that answer your question, Dan?
Well, that was confusing, but my question is there a built into the budget? Is there a built-in fee for the WCC's admin costs? Or, I mean, in my budget, there is a 7% fee that my company can claim on a federal grant. And so I'm wondering if OHA has a provision for the WCC to attach a fee of 3%, 5%, whatever it is.
yeah. In this case, it's 9%.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Yes.
Okay, so then in the budget that you just showed us, could you possibly scroll to the bottom where you showed us the
Yes.
the 44K, there you go, income and debt or deficit. So my understanding is that it's unclear whether the 44K for the 3-year project is for contingencies and miscellaneous, or whether part of that or what part of that is the WCC's fee for running the grant.
Right. Okay. So this is a tricky disconnect where I would have put in that indirect, let's see, other direct costs. Here we go. This is how she set it up. Total administrative cost. So
That's only 18 grand, Dorian.
yeah, that is for okay. Bear with me. So again, Dan understands this. There's so many ways that they quantify or call indirect expense with every grant. It seems to be different, every one.
It is, yeah.
This grant let me budget the direct administrative cost into the upper category, not indirect expense. So these up here, 3,000 for tax, legal, I was able to get those up and out of the indirect expense. So that's up there. Then when we go down, then you've got direct cost to run the event, or I'm sorry, the program. You've got these events we can go to, the advertising. And then down here, our totals were 705,000 of all this. And then I should do the math real quick, but we have that additional 9% on top of that. And that's, I wish I could hear Vicki Lynn, because I would ask her if she's sure that this number at the bottom is right. Let me text her real quick, because it doesn't look right to me. So
Yeah, and Chris messaged, and he needs to for us to either table the vote or vote, right?
okay.
Sorry,
I mean,
guys, I
part
didn't
of the
anticipate this taking this long. I need to put my children to sleep.
part of the vote is that we agree that we understand that some of this money is going to get moved around, that these are not always exact figures.
Right.
Just so that everyone understands, this was already approved by OHA. What Doriander does is she brings to us a pre-approved budget. I mean, she had to get it approved by OHA before we could even vote on it and say yes. So I would like to make a motion that we approve this budget, understanding that There may be some slight changes to it
Yes.
as we go along, and that Doriandra will share those changes with us if they're applicable to things that we need.
Thank you. That's
Do
perfect.
we need any discussion about that? Do I have a second?
I'll second, Margaret.
Okay, Janet?
I'll ask the question at the end. It's not material.
Okay, great. So do we have any discussion, or are we ready to vote on the budget so that Chris can do what he needs to do? So we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It looks like it's unanimous, Jules. Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, all. A very effective and detailed meeting. I appreciate everyone's work. I've been listening the whole time. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Chris. Good night.
Night, Chris.
Okay, Janet, so we have a few questions. So Den, did you get your question answered?
Well, I think so. There appears to be a 9% fee that's built into the grant. Is that correct, Doriandra?
Yes, yep. On my Excel sheet, that is what,
Okay, all right.
That's-
Well, that's perfectly excellent for the WCC.
good.
Yeah.
That's why we have all those different bank accounts, Den. Thank you. That's why we
Well,
have
that's
the
good.
indirect expense account, because that's what
Yeah.
that is.
All right, let's be sure and put that money in the right account.
Right. Well, I do my best. Janet, did you have a question?
Just real quick, I didn't hear the ADA. You went on to the next category. What were the anticipated costs for the ADA equipment?
Oh, good question. Let me go
Mhm.
back over to the budget. Let's see. The ADA upgrades, we've got a total of 35,000 across the 3 years. So each year I'll be able to spend $11,666.
Fantastic.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Derek, do
and-
you have any questions?
I don't.
Okay, I have a question. So as far just so I'm in clear understanding, and I understand that we have to spend all $750,000 down to the penny. Do we have to spend 250,000 a year, or do we have to have the 750,000 spent within 3 years?
Great question. So to keep us from getting into a place where you and I found each other, Margaret, where on that OREP grant,
Yep.
because of problems with the past board, and there was a lot of chaos. And so by the time Margaret came on, I had not been able to spend adequately. I couldn't get the bookkeeper to cut the checks. And so we came into the race at the finish line having, I think it was 65,000 we had to get spent in 2 months. And so that's what I want to avoid this time, because this work is so complex that it's not just like cutting a rent check for somebody, right? So yes, long answer, but yes, I really want to keep us tight to where we're literally spending $250 a year. And of course, there's going to be a little bit of flux, but we just do not want to come to year 3 and be sitting on.
Right, and I get
$400,000.
that, but to stay grant compliant, if we have a little fluctuation, does it have to be 250 a year,
No.
or it has to be 750 by the end?
Yeah, they're not going to cut a funding or do
Okay,
anything. 'cause
that's what I wanted to know. Dan, thank you, Doriandra.
Sure.
Yeah, given that what you said is true, then you also mentioned that you can backdate the request to October 1st. So I highly recommend you do that, and then this pays for a lot of stuff already, and then we start.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
It'll put us
Yeah.
ahead in terms of what you were just talking about.
Right. They're already 2 quarters in because it was October to December. And so like
exactly.
with the way that I have to work the grants is every 3 months, I have to submit a massive activity report, all the data, the aggregate data on people, households, and then every bit of minutia about what we've spent goes into an expenditure report. And then that report just keeps calculating and going on and on. And so we're able to see all the quarters. It's
Doriandra, even the feds don't require that amount of detailed reporting.
Really?
No.
Wow.
No, this is unbelievably overbearing on you to have to report that. We have quarterly budget statements, and then we have progress reports that are due every 6 months.
Wow.
But we don't have this kind of minute detail requirement that OHA has. It surprises me.
It's been like this with all of the grants. The CHIP one we had, it's been hard to kind of keep track because some of them are not on the same quarters, right? So the CDC one, and then that's interesting.
Those are all state grants, aren't they?
Right. So it's interesting that I didn't know that the feds have a little more breathing room in there. That's nicer.
Well, the Fed rule is that if you receive and spend 750,000 or more per year, then you have a required audit, and then you have to record all this detail and all this minutia. But unless you reach that level of 750K per year, it's not stringent like this. And this is only a 250K per year state grant. So I'm frankly really surprised that they're asking you to do so much work for this small amount of money.
And all of them, the COVID grants were like this too.
Yeah.
I mean, we had meeting after meeting. So Doriandra, are you're good? Because there's something since we're talking about money and we're talking about grants, I just think that and all of this, what we looked at, the spreadsheet, once it's all straightened out, we'll be able to go into that link in the drive and have a visual so that anyone on the board can see what's what, correct? Okay, fantastic.
Correct. I'll just make it
right now we have 2 grants. We have this grant, and then we have what you call the CDC grant. So our CDC grant is a federal grant. I believe we had the tobacco grant, which we spent, and we had the AARP grant, which we spent. And then we got a grant for staffing that's supposed to go through June or July. Is that right?
Yeah, it ends June 30th.
So it ends June 30th because it is, and that is a federal grant. So I had Doriandra reach out to her connections there, and that CDC grant pays half of her salary. This grant only pays half. That's all she budgeted it for.
Because I couldn't double. There's a good reason for that. That's not
no, and it's okay. You made this budget long before any of these things happened as well, long before there were any changes. So I did have her reach out to her cohorts on the CDC grant, and they've said just hold tight. We don't know what's going on. We hope that you get the money. And that's about all that they have to say. So, as a board, we just need to be aware of the fact that come March 1st, we may only have the money to pay Doriandra half time. So there's nothing to vote on. I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that. If they indeed do pull that grant. And we don't, nobody knows. Okay. Anything else on the Healthy Homes grant, Doriandra?
all good.
And we'll keep everybody updated as far as what's happening with the CDC grant and all of that. So let's talk real quick about, I myself thought that everybody that went into working, Julie, thank you for all of your help. Doriandra, we had some great speakers at our last meeting. They were talking about, you know, environmental stuff, about DEI stuff, about people that live in our neighborhood that are being targeted. And we had some great speakers, some great resources, and we probably had 4 people from the neighborhood, 5 people from the neighborhood show up. That was it. So we've not been getting a lot of participation. There have been a couple meetings we had at the mission that it was packed. I mean, one time we had nobody online just a couple months ago and the room was full. But it occurred to me, and so I've been going to the NLC meetings, which is the Neighborhood Leaders Council, which are all the chairs or the vice chairs get together once a month and talk about what's happening. And I've been to a couple of fireside chats with the city with them. And out of all the neighborhood associations, only 3, including us, have a general meeting once a month. Everybody else does it quarterly. And then what they do is they have committee meetings once a month. Health and safety, the Whitaker Community Art Team, last Friday Art Walk, which we're going to talk about, you know, that would go under the Whitaker Community Art Team. You know, and they create committees, have those committee meetings on a monthly basis. And then at the very minimum, there's something to come together about once a quarter and talk about what happened. There is no searching for, oh, geez, what are we going to do the next meeting about? What's going to concern people? You know, people that want to be involved can come to a smaller committee meeting and be more boots on the ground and really get involved and serve their community. So I went through, I read our charter a little bit. It doesn't really say much about it. This is a neighborhood association thing. So for me, if we're all in agreement on this, then I'm just going to put a post on our Facebook page and say, hey, we're going to create some committees, you know, and as long as nobody bitches and complains about it, then I would say that after April, we go to quarterly meetings. Do we have any discussion about that? Janet?
I'm not in agreement. I think we're going through very extreme times of change. And I think with Whitaker being among the most impacted, the most vulnerable of all the neighborhood associations, notwithstanding Train Song, I'd like to continue at least through the current year. I don't think going to quarterly, we're going to have the pulse or the heartbeat of our community near as well as we do currently with our schedule. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any other comments about going to quarterly? Jules, you have anything that you want to comment about it? Go ahead.
Sure, I do. One of the reasons why I'm not going to be able to serve next year is because this is a huge time sink. I want to say huge props to everybody who's done this for years and years. Volunteering is not for the faint of heart. Y'all pour tons of hours into this. For me, and I think for a lot of neighborhood members, an obligation that did not require at minimum 2 meetings per month, plus more if you're on a committee, might cause more people to show up for us. We need more people on the board. So I don't know how else we can get more people to come, but making it less than, right now I put in 6 hours just in meetings. Then I type the minutes. I participate in email correspondence. I talk on the phone. I text. I do my volunteer work. And I don't do as much as a lot of people. So anyway, that's my take. I hear what Janet's saying. I don't think she's wrong, but boy, if we got nobody, then nobody's going to do any work.
Right. Durandra?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Julie said, because, yeah, I mean, if we don't have a board, we would have to get this grant back. So I think it's imperative to incentivize new board members with less responsibility so that we can keep doing the good work. But I do agree with Janet too. These are really complex times. And I think the caveat that if we do go to quarterly is that it would give Margaret and I and other board members more time to really coalesce about how to have an incredible meeting. I mean, usually it just feels like we're frantically trying to get people and rushing. Doing it quarterly, we could really make each meeting a really good event. Like, with just, we can do more with less. So,
Right. Derek, did you have something to say?
I agree. Leaving the table open for, an emergency meeting if needed for any reason, of course. But I think sometimes, like with my meetings at work, I get more out of them whenever I can take time and focus on them and get my agenda together. And if I force it every week, sometimes that's just too much. And I know, like Julie said, that, there's a lot of time people put into this, and I'm an at-large member. I don't. And if I had the opportunity to sign up and do a little bit more in the group, it might be more appealing to me, but it can be quite a time sucker if we do that. So I agree going to a less frequent meeting.
Okay. Stephen, I'm going to break my own rules. What do you think? It's a board meeting. We're only supposed to have board members talk, but just as a guy that shows up and that does a lot of work as a volunteer, what do you think about this?
Well, before I give my opinion on frequency of meetings, I would like to say that was a phenomenal meeting. I was extremely disappointed that it was so poorly attended. The work that went into putting that together, the voices that we heard, was just amazing. It really gave you a great idea of the conditions that people were under and this year. As far as frequency of meetings, I'm not really in a good position. I mean, I've got so much time and flexibility that I just fit in with all the other meetings that I go to because I'm a professional meeting attender. So I'm not like a vested interest in time because time is what I've got. So whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, but I can certainly appreciate the need to reduce the meeting load to attract new people onto the board because it's not the time commitment that keeps me off the board. It's other issues, as everybody knows. But so I can see one way. I can see the value of both sides of the conversation, and I'd say I would abstain on the I would abstain in a vote on frequency of meetings. But
I just was wondering what your opinion was.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion that we, after April and after the election, that we go to having quarterly meetings. Do I have a second?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so as of April, the meeting, we will have a new board.
Correct.
And should we broach this with the new board, or you see my
Well,
point?
part of the thing is that we could entice new board members by saying, hey, we're going to do a general meeting. We're not talking about board meetings either, because Doriander still needs to, she's going to figure out how often we have to meet as a nonprofit board. That's a different animal.
You're
But
talking general meeting is what
general meetings, if we tell board members or prospective, I'm trying to get Jen Shack to join the board. Jen Shack is on several boards. She does lots of things. She manages grants. She owns the Whitaker Community Market part of it. And Jen would bring a lot to the table, but Jen, one thing she does not have is time. And if I tell her, hey, Jen, you know what, we're talking about just, once a quarter of the general meeting, she's going to be much more likely. And I have to give Thea a little credit for this because she's been telling me for 2 years. She said, if you go to a quarterly meeting, general meeting, you're going to have more people that want to serve on the board for exactly what Julie talked about. She didn't realize the commitment that it was going to take. Plus, she runs a business, and she's married and runs a household.
Right.
So, and we need more board members, especially with this grant that's coming up. We need people
Right.
to help Briandra and what she needs to do. So,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, don't we?
do we have a second?
A second.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay. So, and Janet, are you opposed? What's
Yes.
your hand up for? Okay. So the
I'm
motion
opposed.
carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing. And Janet, I understand your point of view. And the nice thing is there's nothing that says that we can't go back to that.
True.
We can always increase those things as activity increases and as we see a need. But right now we need more people on the board. We're not even, I think we're at half, and we'll be, less than that. So, okay. So, also, and we can talk about this next month, but I sent out. So Whitaker Community Art Team has been doing, and the last Friday Art Walk, Margaret has been doing that for 3 years. Last year I went out, I put a committee together, reached out to the old Whitaker Community Art Team, reached out to some local venues and artists, and I actually got some people to participate. And I did it basically myself the previous 2 years. So I've been doing it for 3. We didn't do it over COVID. Before that, Ian did it. It's been with the Whitaker Community Council for a long time. So we did get, I actually reached out to Gloria and said, hey, it's almost time for the art walk. Do you want to get together and talk about it? And she said, I'll send you an email. And that letter that I forwarded all of you guys came from Gloria. So understand that we did, and we talked about it last year. We put out a budget. We got money from the city. We have a website that's paid for 2 years. That's the Whitaker Community Council website, but it's the last Friday Art Walk. We did lots of graphics. We paid for a domain, and we still have money left in that budget. The city budget is 2 years. And we still have money left in the budget for the last Friday Art Walk to do posters or whatever we need to do for this year. So Gloria sent a letter stating that she wants, that she's interested in doing it, but not interested in doing it with the WCC, and would like for us to just hand it over to her. I myself have mixed emotions about the whole thing. It's especially if we go to quarterly meetings, that's a committee that we could actually put together and do something with. And actually Doriandra has some other ideas for Dubcat, and to do some murals and that kind of thing. Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, I think the art walk has a home that's just perfectly suited for it. I don't think it should be given away. I think the WCC should maintain control of it as long as there are people on the board who are willing to run it. And you've done a marvelous job, Margaret, in keeping it alive and forwarding it along. And I think that we should just keep doing just like we're doing on the art walk. There's no reason to give it away to Gloria.
I agree. Anyone else? Julie, you agree with that? Coriandra, you worked on the art walk a lot. I mean, you did it when it was with Ian.
Yeah, it's really integral to the WCC, and it's such a big part of WCAT, which, we don't have any current art grants right now. So for the art committee, it's really all they have. And it seems preposterous to me to give it away to other folks when it's been part of WCC for as long as I remember.
Yeah, I think it was on its Julie. When was? I know the last Friday art walk was kind of a community thing, but I think that was like 20 years ago. I mean, it doesn't get more grassroots than us.
Yeah, I don't know who started it. I mean, I remember eating Twinkies and drinking PBR in somebody's living room like 20 years ago. But I think that was real grassroots because you just opened your door. I don't know how it was organized. We just wandered around and got free booze and free Twinkies. I don't know if anyone was organizing it then. I don't know who it was.
Okay. We don't really need to vote on it. I will just email her back and tell her that the board discussed it, and that's not something that we want to do. We want to keep it where it's at. Okay, fantastic. We have 5 minutes left. It was a fantastic meeting. So if you all know anyone who's interested in running for the board, we actually, Julie, you are going to be hard to replace, but we have to have a secretary. That's part of our nonprofit status. I found out 2 years ago, in the state of Oregon, we have to have a secretary to go on the Secretary of State website. And it is a position that has to be filled. So I know that there's people out there. I'll try to make a couple posts and talk about it, just quarterly meetings, come do some fun. Derek, are you still interested in doing a business committee?
Possibly, yeah. And
Well,
that's
I'm
one
going
of
to tell you it's that there, that doing the art walk is also dealing with all the local businesses. Because that's where all the art goes. And some people's homes. I know a guy who will take care of all the houses and set them up. But would you be interested in reaching out to some businesses and seeing how much they want to get involved by what we're doing with the art walk?
Yeah, it's one of the notes I had here. I mentioned you earlier. I was going to call you tomorrow because I had some questions, and
okay,
I will make that a topic of one of those discussions.
Fantastic. We will talk about it tomorrow. Everybody have a great night. It's been a great meeting. Den, thank you for all of your great input. Janet, thanks for reaching out to the railroad. And Stephen, thank you for being here. Julie, oh my gosh, Julie is gonna land in Thailand in the morning, right?
No, we leave Friday morning, and because of the time change, we don't get there till Saturday night. You lose a whole day going. But I'll be out Friday morning, and next thing I know, it'll be Saturday night in Thailand.
Well, because of you, I want to go get a Twinkie now.
Oh, okay. Get a PBR to go with it. That's the only way to eat it.
Well, I want to go to Thailand instead. So, yeah.
So I'll see y'all in April. And
all right, you have a great time, and I'll look to see if you make any Facebook posts of some incredible places in the jungle.
Probably will. All right, thanks, y'all.
All right, Stephen, thank you as always.
Good night, guys.
Right. Do you have the meeting, Doriandra?
She just signed off.
She did. All right.
Yeah.
I think I have to.
It's just you and me, girl.
It is. Stop taking notes. Okay. Stop taking notes.